There's been a lot of buzz about Mario Kart World and its $80 price tag lately. And I understand why. $80 is a lot of money, especially when the industry standard has been $60 for the past few decades. People are worried that this might become the new norm, that every game might be launching at $80. And that's definitely concerning, but that's not really what I want to talk about today. Instead, I'd like to talk about something that happened to me last week that kind of changed how I've been thinking about this entire thing. It all started last weekend. I was with my friend Bruce, who you may know as the guy who does all the illustrations for this channel, at SoCal Retro Gaming Expo 2025. At this point, I really only buy stuff that needs preservation, so print materials mainly, or games that I intend to play. So that was my main focus while I was there, and also meeting Grant Kirkhope.
Okay.
Towards the end of the day, I looked in my bag and realized that I spent around $150 in total. And that made me pause. I started thinking about the breakdown of what I'd actually bought. First up, Balls 3D for the Super Nintendo. I spent $35 on a sealed copy, and if I break that down, $20 to $25 probably went into the fact that it was sealed. So that plastic wrap is doing a lot of the heavy lifting price-wise. The rest of the money goes into the box and the cartridge, but if I ask myself how much of that money actually went towards entertainment, the answer is zero. I'm not going to play Balls 3D. I bought it because I thought it was funny and I had $35. Then there's Family Feud 2009 edition for the Wii. I picked that up for $5 entirely because I like having a small collection of weird party games on hand. They're perfect for when I'm hanging out with friends and we're sick of talking to each other, or when we just don't really want to play Mario Party again because we've literally played every single version of that game a dozen times by now. That $5 is probably going to give us about an hour or two of entertainment. It's the kind of game where the horrible voice acting and the extremely ugly character models are half of the fun, and the other half of the fun is coming up with the dumbest answers that we possibly can. Then I got to the bigger purchases. Two games that were really about the value of entertainment above all else. One of those was Lisa the Painful. I've had my eye on it for quite a while, but I held off on playing until there was a physical Switch release, just because it's more convenient for me to play on a Switch. That game will give me probably about 12 hours of a hopefully novel and engaging experience. I spent $35, of which I'd say $30 will go to the entertainment, and the other $5 went to this cool postcard that came with it. The other game I splurged on was Breath of the Wild, which I'd bought for $40. Not for me though, for Bruce. Somehow he's never played it, and I really needed to fix that. That game gave me about 300 hours of entertainment, but more importantly, it completely reshaped how I think about experiencing video games, although that's a video for another day. I was happy to pay $60 when it first came out, so I wholeheartedly believe that getting to play it for $40 is a hell of a deal. Even if he only plays it for 100 hours, that is relatively an insane amount of value. And that's where this whole thing starts to get a lot more complicated. The way that we assign value to games is messy. There's no clean cost to play ratio that really means anything. Sure, you can calculate it if it makes you feel better about however many dollars you spent on that purchase, but it doesn't answer the core question. Did the game feel worth it to you? And that's where the $80 thing really starts to become more concerning. Not because it's expensive in a vacuum, but because video games are already more of a gamble than any other form of entertainment. You may not really know if you're going to like a game until you're a few hours in, yet the cost to try it out is leagues higher than any other form of media, and with no good free alternative. Libraries exist for books, and exists for movies and TV. But demos sparsely exist for modern games, and it requires a much higher amount of technical know-how to pirate them, and that's not to get into the issues with playing certain titles off of their intended platform, particularly in the case of Nintendo titles. You can watch trailers and reviews, but the experience itself will always be personal. Now, with games costing more and more, the risk is growing too, especially when so many of them are digital only. You might not even own what you're buying. We're in a weird spot where pricing feels more like a filter than a reflection of quality. An $80 game might have been hundreds of millions of dollars invested in development and marketing, and it may have produced a game that 50% of the player base absolutely adores, but it's a real risk that the other 50% might not be as happy with their purchase. Either way, you are required to commit, and that commitment doesn't just come from money, it comes from time. Games are long, they ask a lot out of you, and when they feel like they don't deliver, the disappointment cuts deeper than it does with a bad movie or a book you couldn't finish. Because every playthrough is inherently unique, shaped by how each player interacts with the game, it's almost impossible to standardize the cost, the experience, or the level of engagement that they're going to have. There's just too much variation to reliably price around it. So while I don't have a firm opinion on the pricing of Mario Kart World, as I don't even own a Switch 2 and I played the game for about 5 minutes, I can definitively say that I don't really like where this is going. Games are becoming more inaccessible financially, but more importantly, they're becoming more inaccessible psychologically. When somebody is spending 30% more on a game than they were 5 years ago, that's psychologically taxing. There's a new pressure at it. Any additional risk makes people less likely to try something new, and it makes them a lot less likely to be okay with not loving a game. For industry giants like Nintendo or Naughty Dog, this isn't really that big of a deal. But the anxiety of buying a video game has a real shot of trickling down. When the price of entry is high and the outcome is unpredictable, the space for experimentation, for self-connection, or even for disappointment starts to shrink. And I think that that's a loss, no matter how good the game really is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's a little bit different from all the rest of the videos that I make, although there's not really like a cohesive theme in anything else that I really do. And I know that this topic is a little late to the Mario party, if you will. Credits to my dad for that joke. I thought it was awful. But if you did enjoy, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment about something. I don't know, tell me what your opinions are. Actually, that's kind of just what I want to hear. What do you think about this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is this going to harm experimentation in console games really specifically? Yes, no, maybe? We'll see. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.